Okay. Put it in there. Is that it?
No, that's Nemo.
Get one a gravestone. How many flowers did you want to get? Can you read it?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Several years ago, when my dad was living, he was a minister. There was a small frame church here, and the church was closed. So Dad came and worked here in the community and was able to get the congregation going again. And during that time, one night a drunk person came along the road here and ran off the road and ran into that frame church and knocked it off its foundations. And so Dad was investigating and found out who did it, and he did not press charges. And the fellow who did it was impressed by this, and shortly after that the man was saved. And then a few years after that, others of his family were saved too, and a few years after that, the son of that man who knocked the church off the foundation became pastor of this church. He's not pastor now, but the last I heard he was pastoring Fort Walton Beach or something.
You remember his name?
I don't remember the name.
Huh.
You gotta get the sign so it'll... You got it. You got it? Wait. How many you got? We need 6.
Huh?
We need 6. That's 6.
The only one of us that was born in this house, Anton. He's the only one born here. Your dad was born in Baghdad. I was born in a house that was on the hill beyond Granddaddy Miller's place.
This log cabin. If you ever used to be president, half the building.
I got to rebuild my log cabin when they elect me president.
All right.
It was not a log cabin. It was made more, like our normal house. Granddaddy Miller's was all logs, but that one was not. It
Yeah.
was just built out of lumber.
Huh.
You know how in Quincy's, some of them, and well, Cracker Barrel's a better example, where they're running the lumber vertical and it's rough lumber and they got strips over the seam.
Yeah.
That's the way the house looked that I was born in down there.
Yeah.
It was fixed that way, rather than logs.
Uh-huh.
And this house here is framed. It's not a log house either. It's all lumber, but it's framed lumber. And those asbestos shingles were put on there after World War II. I don't remember just when, but like 1950. About 5 years old, we were living in this house, and during a thunderstorm, a violent thunderstorm one day, Dad brought me out on the front porch, which was bigger at that time than this porch is now. It's a little further out, deeper, and longer across the front a little bit. And we were out on the porch and watching the storm. And lightning struck a big pine over here just across the road, not too far away. I mean, splintered that thing. It just splinters went everywhere. I could see stuff flying in all directions, from this huge pine. And I never will forget the power of that storm, the wind blowing and so on. We were standing watching the pines wave in this high wind. And then all of a sudden this bolt of lightning and scared me to, almost to death. But that was something. I just remember I've never seen lightning hit a tree and splinter it into smithereens, as we say, I guess, except that one time. It's the only time in my whole life I've ever seen one splintered like that. I've seen lightning strike things, but never with that destructive force like it hit that pine that day.
Well, it was infernal. Yeah. Well, the flames was on the ground.
The pine was made so you can build a... So it does have a hole in it there.
Yeah. Got a patch on it. Had a patch for years.
There's the edge right there.
It's a chicken house or a dog pen. A chicken pen or a dog pen. I don't know which.
Well, they couldn't use that thing. I see another hole in it. Well, he's not gonna use it. Well,
He's not gonna use it.
barbecue pit or something.
He's just on display it.
It's right up on top.
Okay, you might want to take a smell. So,
Probably a chemical of some kind over there. I would guess.
You poured some more over there,
It's got a
Anton.
plastic
how
cap.
to?
She gave it all to us.
I couldn't get it to New Jersey.
There's a calendar over there while you get.
Okay.
Mom and Dad stored canned goods on your right there. You saw the jars.
Yes, sir.
Then, who is it? Paul said, Granddaddy.
I remember that story.
I think it was Paul.
Yeah.
Granddaddy.
Cattle.
Pregnant cows. That third one's pregnant. She couldn't have a cow. Here, put this on.
Yeah,
Put this on you.
look at that Jonathan.
They always look at you, see what you're doing.
Well, we're looking at them.
They think you want to feed them. That's they came up here because they expected you to feed
They
them.
hope you want
Look
to.
at that one.
Right.
You went and dropped the camera. I got it. I'm trying to button.
See if you can get that bull to charge you, Dad.
You want him to charge? Get Danielle and hold him out in front of you. With
Yeah.
that red coat. Let's make him charge.
You see it's in sections, and there's a, turn it over, and there's a divider here and here and here and here. And you put the put the cane juice in up here, and there's fire under all this. And it runs down here, and there's an opening, and it runs in here, and over here, and there's an opening here, and it runs over there, and there's an opening there. And it just keeps going like that. And it's cooking all the time.
Well, they didn't do like that in that other one.
Not the round one,
They
no.
just cooked it and boiled it and.
And time it gets down here, it's evaporated till it's syrup. And you can,
And
it's a
it is
continuous
good.
process. And that one you had to put in a batch and cook it and take it out. Put in another batch, cook it and take it out. Here it's a continuous.
This one you
can
run it
keep putting it
continuous.
in here and keep taking it out
But
down
where's
here.
the syrup run? Right along here?
Well, it's bottom side up now to protect it from the weather.
Oh,
It'll be on the
I hope
inside.
that's off the drain, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
got
the
what got
fire's
smoked,
gone.
you know. The fire was underneath there.
Oh, okay. I wonder why syrup would make it so black.
No,
It's
it's
wood, isn't it? Well,
yeah. No, this is copper. This is copper.
Oh, that's,
Copper.
oh, I thought it was wood too. I thought,
Dirty,
Honey, we just did like that.
dirty, dirty.
Now have your chance to.
Here's his mill.
Yeah, there's the.
he grinds his cane up.
He said Uncle Alvin disposed of the Granddaddy Miller's old mill.
Yeah.
That's not it.
They haul the cane here and stack it right here.
This will get me over
And they drive this mill with a tractor. I'm not
Yeah.
sure
Go
how.
see that press, it presses all the juice out.
Well, you take a
Like an old-fashioned washing
power
machine.
takeoff from this tractor over here and run it, apparently.
The guy stands right here and takes a stalk and sticks it right between those rollers.
And the juice runs
They
out.
squeezes it and the juice comes out into this pan. And I think he hooks up, and it comes out right here.
Yeah.
Then they strain it. And
pour
here's
it
where you can get you a cup and get you a good glass of juice.
Oh,
And
gross.
this is where the
No thanks.
take a power takeoff bar here, where they connect up like the tractor. See the power connection for the blade on the back of the tractor?
Okay,
They
yeah.
Connect that kind of thing
Damn,
up
it tastes sweet.
to this, right here, and it turns that and grinds it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's geared down. There's the connection.
Yeah.
There. They have to put a pulley on there, and it's geared down then, so
Don't
they
get
can
up
turn
there.
it with the tractor.
Danielle, don't get up there.
Okay.
Now the old ones, they had a mule or a horse that would walk around. They'd go this way. Miller Pond here had an alligator in it. And some mornings when you get up to go to breakfast and so on, you'd hear the alligator down here, the bull alligator, and he'd make a noise that you could hear. You'd know it was him. And of course, their warning was, "Don't go near the pond. The alligators will get you."
What's growing over there?
I don't know what. We used to take 22 and shoot at their eyes.
Not hard, well, you could blind a poor.
For the TVA, and he brought a bunch of pine seedlings down here from Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and we planted them here by hand. They finally matured, and when the timber was cut last year or year before, they cut these, so they finally matured.
Which way are you
Those
going?
over there were planted by machine several years later, and they're doing very well.
Huh?
You can see it changes right here. And I don't think this is
You
it.
put gloves on me?
But your granddaddy, Hurst, and you boys, I guess, planted this in pines.
Can I hold that
Uh,
flag?
I don't know when.
Yeah, yeah.
When you did that, someone was sticking holes in my hand.
These are coming along. Lord willing, in a few years, we're well on the way.
We'll go back now.
Train is coming. Train's coming.
Heated his house with that heater, and you didn't have to split the wood because it'd burn it all up anyway. So we'd cut wood that we didn't have to split,
Shh, don't take it off. Don't take it off.
about that size
I'm
maximum.
Don't unzip it all the way.
And,
It's too hard to get the bottom part in.
Cut the limbs off and cut it up into lengths and take it to the house. Plenty of firewood, as you can see. There's plenty of wood.
But he wouldn't get all that good extra splitting those logs. You tear a whole log.
Well,
like
you
that.
can split it if you want.
Look at the muscles he's growing.
Well, Dad was living in his old house, going way back, when I was a boy. He heated with the fireplace, And in his case, he could pick up on this land here, and there's probably still some of it here, this rich pine, you know, from the original virgin
Remember
pine.
what you used to call
When they,
them?
yeah,
Lighter
lightwood,
knots.
Lighter knots.
lightwood knots. They, you know, make light, you know,
Yeah.
but you read by the light, so it's lightwood
The knot
knots.
that makes the light.
And you could pick up that stuff and burn it along with some of the hardwood and
burns it
the
like
other stuff,
gasoline.
and it creates, you know, it's like one of these artificial logs you buy today and put in your fireplace, and it creates flame and color, flame and all that, you know. You got light and you got color and you know, plenty of fire. You know, it's like putting gasoline on it when you put one of those on there, because it was a rich pine and it would not rot. Termites won't eat it. In other words, you made a fence post out of it. The termites wouldn't eat it and it wouldn't rot.
Yeah.
I thought
Because
you
just
did
like-
burn pine.
Well, they just burned it enough to keep the wood flamed up where you could see
Well, you
the
need some in
flame.
your fireplace to make it.
Granddaddy Miller's fireplace and chimney were made of stone. Now there's no stone right around
I
here.
don't have one of
So he went to Rock Hill,
Where the
and-
cemetery was up there.
yeah, and dug rocks out of the ground to build his chimney and his fireplace. And when I was a kid, that chimney and fireplace was still there. The house was moved to widen the road, and they tore down the old chimney. There's still some of the stones around there, but
And they built the chimney back and used brick
yeah.
Maybe Paul likes some of those stones.
there. And you can see there's a hump in the ground because the soil would stay compacted under the fence. And there's a little road on the other side of the cedars where Granddad came down going to the field right by the fence. And I can see where that road was. I remember. It's just behind those two cedars there. You can see it. Look up that way toward the house, and there's no trees in it. See?
Matthew's pair.
And it looks like this kind of, not as wide.
Uh-huh.
But the old rail fence road would have been about where
Well,
these
they are,
two
but
cedars
they're
are.
letting. Well, Ryan's probably likes it better than anybody, because he doesn't count like he likes it. We figured he'd like it. But we just guessed it's fine. That's
Bee orchard, he called it, his beehives. And at one time he had nearly 100, if not 100, beehives in here. And I was the only one of the grandkids that wasn't afraid of the bees and would help him take honey out of the hives and so on. All the rest of the kids, when they saw a bee, they'd take off back to the house. And so I was the only one that would.
me.
That sounds like now I know where Brandon got that.
So once a year, you know, he'd take the honey out and put in the new frames and everything for the bees to make honey again. You got to smoke the hive, and got to wear a hat, you know, with a screen around it and a cloth around it. You got to have your pants legs, you know, rubber bands around them or something down here so they can't crawl up your legs
Yeah.
and so on. And I was the only one of the grandkids that would come out here and wear all that and help him with it.
Did you ever get stung?
Yeah, you get stung a few times, but I was not allergic to the sting, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Saved him by
If you're gonna go with your granddaddy, you're gonna want him down in red paint.
I know we ain't gonna have this cow.
How we gonna get home?
Well, come back and get it, don't leave it.
Yeah, don't leave him.
That bull's after my coat, she said.
He's not in there anymore.
than you are, a lot closer
that's
than
all
here.
I
But you just go right down through
That
there,
road.
and the ground was hard to stand, was hard enough you can just go right on through. Now, he kept the trees cut down, and you can see through it right now.
I'm not going towards
I knew there was no crossing.
We got to, we gotta go through that gate.
I didn't know whether I could
That's the only way
find
we
it.
can get
Yeah,
over.
we was behind
If
one.
you look when you're there out in the west, you have to leave out through. You take it out.
You look at my red coat. She's coming this way.
Go ahead, if you want.
Yeah.
You got over there fast, didn't we?
Don't we got over that fence in a hurry. His mom was out there trying to have to go black boy that looks
Started at the line up there and went about halfway to the old house there.
pear tree right
And then it was garden from there on. Okay? So he had a garden out there, and then he cultivated here under these pear trees. He had like 50 pear trees out here or more. Yeah, here's one.
It's dangerous around here. Ant beds and bulls.
There's one there. There's still some of the old trees.
I don't like this trip.
And what you do when you want to take honey out of the hives, you got to have a smoke gun, and you smoke that opening there. And there's guards on the inside of the opening, and the smoke puts them to sleep, kind of, you know, so they can't guard the opening. And once you do that, then you can open the hive and take the honey out and so on. And you just brush the bees off your hands as you work with them and so on, and take the honey out. And if they start trying to sting you, spray them with the smoke. And the smoke does something to them. They can't breathe it, you know, so they're having trouble breathing, and they won't bother you while they're having trouble breathing. Takes about 30 minutes for them to overcome the smoke, and then they'll start zapping you then. So you have to get in there and get your honey out, put the new frames in for them to make honey again, and get away from the hive within about half an hour. Otherwise, you got to keep spraying smoke on them, which you can kill them, you know, if you give them too much.
Yeah.
It's just like us, you know, smoke inhalation will kill you, and it do the same thing with the bees if you give them too much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what do you think there, buddy?
But you saw there's an oak tree laying on the ground up there. Oh, for pecan, I'm not sure.
Come over here, Paul's trucking. Get your tree. Is that the only pear tree left?
No. There's one back here. There's one right there.
Where are the pears?
One over there. This is January. They don't bear much.
They wait till the leaves come out and then the buds come down.
The cap for this was a piece of cardboard, round of course,
Went down
and
in
it
there.
had a little tab that you could pull up and you pull it out with the tab.
That is an old milk bottle. That's
Yeah.
not, how old do you think that probably is?
Not around.
That's interesting to know. Yeah, that's a great bottle.
Then they made them square, and the body came up a little higher than this, the neck was shorter. You know?
150 years ago or something like that. Seemed like somebody in one of the families worked there, or the post office disposed of it and they got it. So it's kind of interesting piece, quite plain, but it got quite a history.
Yeah, when he gets through filming, I'll show
Well,
you.
that's okay. It
The
runs.
rails run right down.
Okay.
These logs here are on rails.
That is
okay.
Granddaddy Hurst right there.
Yeah.
As a young boy.
He's in his teens. He began to teach school and preach while he wouldn't have been in the picture like that. So it had to be when he was like 18, 19, something.
Now, what year was Granddaddy born in?
This is Samps
They
Hurst.
call it Sam's Hurst, yeah. I think that's who it is. That was my guess.
I thought it looked like him too,
Yeah, it looks
compared
like
to the
it.
other
Yeah,
picture.
compared to facial
Do you
expressions
remember the
and
name of the twin?
Twin
I-
brother.
Granddaddy's brother Samps.
His twin brother was the one who died on it.
When Granddaddy Miller lived over here on Laurel Hill route where we were today, years ago, and I'm not sure how long ago it was, but it would have to be during the 1930s or some such time as I recall it. He had chickens. Everybody had chickens in those days because they raised most of their own food. So he had chickens and, you know, had a chicken house out behind the kitchen out in the backyard like. And one night while he's sleeping, why, he hears the chickens disturbed out there. And of course, this is out in the country, and possums, raccoons, and other animals, you know, are out at night, nocturnal animals. And so he thought probably, he said, just heard the noise one time, and then the chickens quieted down. And so he thought, well, okay, if it was a possum, the possum's already got his chicken or missed the chicken, and he's gone since he didn't hear any more noise. Well, the next night, though, he heard the chickens disturbed again, and he thought, well, I better go out there and kill the possum, if that's what it is, get my chickens. And I don't know what had happened the previous night, whether the thief was there or not. But the second night, anyway, he heard the disturbance. Why, he decided he'd slip up on the animal and shoot him. And so he takes his shotgun, and it's a moonlight night, and he takes his shotgun, and it's got buckshot in it. And he walks out barefooted out of the house so he wouldn't make any noise, you know. He didn't want to put his shoes on. So he walks out into the yard, goes down, you know, to where the chicken house is, and he gets like 20 feet from the chicken house, and he sees a man in the chicken house. Okay, the man has a bag, these great big, you know, sacks. We used to call them cloth sacks. They call them croaker sacks because people used to put, I guess, frogs in them years ago. They call frogs croakers. Well, anyway, he had a big sack like that, and he's taking chickens off the roost and putting them in, you know, the bag. So anyway, Granddaddy Miller, you know, he was one of these circuit riding Methodist preachers, and it wouldn't do for him to kill somebody, so he didn't want to kill him anyway. He wouldn't kill anything, wouldn't kill an animal even, I guess, unless he needed them, you know, like beef or something. But anyway, he yelled at the guy when he saw the man. He said, "What are you doing?" or something loud like that, you know, just screamed out at the guy at the top of his voice. And of course, this scared the guy. He drops the bag with the chickens in it, runs out of the chicken house, coming back out towards Granddad, who's standing 20 feet away maybe. And then he takes off to the side of the house, going towards the garden, which is on that other side of the house, trying to get away back to the road, which is in front of the house. And so Granddad decided, well, he'd just teach him a lesson without killing him, you know. And he waited until the thief got out near the garden fence, and he was heading for a picket fence which had a gate in it that was between the garden and the house. And he was headed for this gate, and he could get in the garden and then jump the fence and back on the road, the highway out here. And so he waited until the thief was near that fence, near that gate, and maybe 6 or 8 or 10 feet or something from the gate, and he shot him with his shotgun loaded with buckshot. And so the guy, when the shots hit him in the back, of course, it went in, penetrated the skin, and it went through his clothing and through his skin and into his back, and he just hit the gate without, you know, unfastening the gate or opening the gate. He just tore the gate apart. I mean, he just ran through it, you know, like crazy. Went on through and back out through the garden and jumped the fence, and he's gone. Well, of course, they take him to the hospital in Crestview, you know, to pick the buckshot out of his back. And I guess they get the buckshot out that night, while, you know, maybe before day the next morning. This is sometime in the middle of the night. And so the next day then, up drives the sheriff. And of course the hospital had to report to the sheriff that this guy said that Granddaddy Miller shot him. So the sheriff comes to the house, and he gets out with the usual courtesies, you know. Everybody called Granddaddy Miller Uncle David. His name was David Sylvester Miller, and everybody nearly at his age, as he was older, you know, everybody called him Uncle David. Uncle David, I hear that there's a man in the hospital who says you shot him. And so Granddad tells him this whole story, you know, and laughs about it. And of course the sheriff's got his pad, he's making a few notes and so on. And when Granddad finishes telling him the story about how the guy was stealing his chickens and he just shot him enough to scare him and that sort of thing, well, the sheriff puts his notebook back in his pocket, shakes hands with Granddaddy, and takes off, says, "Fine," said, "Have a good day," and he was gone. This was the report, I guess, that was filed. But that was quite an incident, and Granddad liked to talk about it. And he would tell that story to anyone, you know, if they came and asked about it, say, "Hey, I hear you shot someone, tell me the story."
And the fellow would then walk by the house.
Yeah, when he would walk by the house later on, and a lot of people had to walk in those days because they couldn't afford transportation, and so this guy would walk on the opposite side of the road from the house. He didn't even want to come near the gate and the property. He wanted to stay on the opposite side of the highway.
I guess he learned his lesson.
He apparently learned his lesson. And of course, everybody knew the guy. When in the hospital. Granddad didn't know who it was when he shot him, apparently. But of course, then the next day, when they turned it into the sheriff's office and everything, everybody knows who the guy is. And it was somebody everybody knew.
His name was what?
Run Steele was the guy's name. They called him Run. He was a little fella. All the Steeles were pretty good sized guys, like 6 feet tall, except this one. And I don't know what his real name was, but everybody called him Run Steele.
Very good.